Well, if any of you big Marvel fans out there are like me and you've been chomping at the bit ever since Avengers Infinity War came out for more Marvel movies. Since Avengers Infinity War, we got Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now with the long-awaited Captain Marvel, which stars Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, Samuel L. Jackson, Ben Mendelsohn, and Jude Law. In this movie, Carol Danvers becomes one of the universe's most powerful heroes when Earth is caught in the middle of a galactic war between two alien races, and she finds out that she's more powerful than she ever knew she was. Now, I know going into this, there's a lot of speculation about the movie itself, a lot of talk on the internet, and a lot of talk about certain agendas for other people. I want to just get that out of the way and preface this review by saying I don't care about any of that crap. I love movies, superhero movies especially, and I just want to go and see a good movie that's filmed well, that's got good action, and a good story. As long as the superhero movies have some of those factors in there, and it's not just a mindless, sit in the theater, slump down, and watch kind of movie, I'm there. Especially with Infinity War. Once Avengers Infinity War came out and they wowed us with that, Marvel's been, having to stay up there in terms of content that they put out. I was really excited for this movie, and I don't think I was as disappointed with this movie as some other people may be. It's by no means a perfect movie. There are flaws with it, but there's a lot of things that were going on here that I liked. For one, the chemistry between Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson was great. The two of them, I thought, played really well off of each other. They had really funny lines that they were able to go back and forth with, and you really enjoyed seeing the two of them together on screen. I feel like those were the moments that really shined for me in this movie, was when the two of them were actually on screen with each other and just playing very well off of each other. It was definitely something that was good in the scripting for this movie that I think myself and a lot of other people in the movie theater when I went to go see the movie really enjoyed. Another thing to point out for this movie is the score. The score for this movie was great. You had, I won't spoil any of the songs that were in the movie, but there were a lot of 90s culture. I personally grew up in the 90s that they threw in there that I thought was really cool. There was a lot of 90s nostalgia that was in there too, as you can see from the trailer. She crash lands into a Blockbuster, which we all know was a very famous rental store back in the day. You can also see flashes of a Game Boy, and again, I won't get too much into the details because I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a lot of fan service to the 90s kids that were watching the movie and that are a fan of comic book movies. Now, I wish there was more of it, and they really don't kind of delve into it for too long. It's maybe only 10 minutes or so of the movie, and then, like I said, the score in terms of songs that they use later on in the movie that pop in and out are definitely paying homage to the 90s, but the fact that they finally included that into a Marvel film, I know with Thor Ragnarok, they really had a lot of 80s feel and some older songs from that time period that worked really well in that movie, so it was cool for them to go to a different time frame and actually utilize some of that nostalgia to appeal to some of the younger audience like myself. Another thing that this review can't go without mentioning was the CGI done for the de-aging effects for both Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg, because those were phenomenal. For the first 10 minutes of the movie, yeah, you might realize that, it's not the real Samuel L. Jackson, but as the movie goes on and you get sucked into it, I honestly couldn't even tell that was a younger version of himself. Clark Gregg, he's not in the movie as much, so when you do see him, you can kind of tell with his face. It was still done well, don't get me wrong, but I think because he wasn't in the movie as much as Samuel L. Jackson and didn't get as much screen time was why it didn't really do it for me as well as him. But either way, at the end of the day, whoever did that, however much money Disney spent to get that done, they need to be applauded for that, because that's the future. Honestly, I know they did it before with Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, and obviously that was really good too, but I think they hit the ground running with this and really nailed it on the head. I was really glad to see that it wasn't cringy going through the movie or anything like that. Another thing that I enjoyed with this movie was Ben Mendelsohn playing the villain of this movie. Now, I gotta be honest, any movie that Ben Mendelsohn's in, I'm there. I'll see it. I don't know what it is with him. He's got a bit of a speech impediment when he talks. He kind of got rid of it for this movie, but again, I don't want to mention that too much and diminish him as an actor because he's great. I loved him The first time I ever saw him in a movie was The Place Beyond the Pines, which had sort of a minor role in that movie, but it was still great, don't get me wrong. Ready Player One, he was really good in that movie. And then, like I said, you do get to see him in this movie shine just how he has in all of his previous roles as well. And the villain surprised me a little bit. I thought going into it, watching with the trailers, that he was just going to kind of be there, almost like a Thor Dark World kind of villain, where, you need a bad guy for the movie, but you don't necessarily care or understand the character very well. I think Marvel did a pretty good job in fleshing him out. And again, I won't go too deep into it because I don't want to spoil anything, but they surprised me a little bit on this one. I think if you're looking for a movie that, doesn't have a paper-thin villain, I think you would end up enjoying this movie because it surprised me for sure, and I know it surprised a lot of other people in the movie theater and my friends that had seen the movies. Now, with all that being said, there is a good amount of things to like in this movie. There were a couple of good fight scenes too, just to touch on that briefly, especially in the beginning. My favorite fight scene in the movie was probably towards the very beginning, where Brie Larson's got these handcuffs on her hands and she can't just magic her way out of them, or her way out of them. She's got to actually beat people up to break these handcuffs off. I thought that was a pretty memorable fight scene. But other than that, and this is kind of going into some of the stuff I didn't like about the movie, it was pretty forgettable in terms of fight scenes after that. This isn't the type of Marvel movie that I can see myself going back to watch over and over and over again. Infinity War, I've seen that movie about three or four times since that movie released last year. That's a movie you can go back to and continuously get joy out of, and even though you know what's going to happen, you want to keep watching it, you want to keep understanding it. For this movie, you see it because you're a fan and you want to know that next step before the final part for Avengers Endgame is released next month. But it's kind of a throwaway movie at the end of the day. It's not the performances aren't terrible, and the film is shot pretty well in terms of where they're going or what they're doing, but every scene that you see in the movie, it's very dark and it's very dull, and there isn't a specific sense of style. I honestly think that might be attributed to the fact that there was more than one director for this movie. I can't really recall off the top of my head any other Marvel movies aside from the Russo brothers that were directed by more than one person. But again, to my point, the Russo brothers, they have their own certain style as well. Everybody who's directed some of the really big standout Marvel movies, especially the last couple years, even Black Panther included, those directors have their own sort of stamp on that movie. I didn't really get any differentiation in this movie from, that would make it stand out from other movies. It kind of is just actors there doing things, acting out their scenes, and then doing a fight scene, and that's it. You know what I mean? It's boring to watch at times. Not to say, again, that the movie itself is discredited or boring, but this movie felt very much to me like a Phase 1 movie in late Phase 3. And I don't want to discredit Iron Man or Captain America, the First Avenger, or Thor, because, like I said, I really did enjoy all those movies thoroughly, especially the first Iron Man movie. But those movies all had their own style, and those characters were able to grow into themselves over the course of the last 10 years. Captain Marvel just she's just kind of there, it's just made because she's going to be in Avengers Endgame, and they didn't really put, I don't think, as much dedication into this movie as they possibly could have. This movie also, I feel, struggles to find what kind of movie it wants to be. And by that, I mean at some point in the beginning, you get a little bit of 90s nostalgia. And then it sort of feels like a buddy cop movie. And then it sort of feels like a friendship movie when she rekindles a friendship with someone from her past. And never quite nails what sort of genre it's going for, what sort of message that it's trying to send to the people that are watching it, and I think that's another big shortcoming. Also, towards the end, and again, this is a spoiler for your review, so I'm not going to ruin anything, it comes to explain certain things that have happened at other points in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that it tries to backtrack and give you a little bit more explanation for. Those reasons, and again, when you see the movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, didn't really sell me 100%. I feel like those somewhat fell flat in their message, and you kind of just look at them and be like, so that's how that happened. Okay. I didn't really need that, but okay. You know what I mean? Or they could have at least done that or shown us how said events had happened, but make it a little bit more believable. It just felt like very throwaway, like, oh, by the way, this is how this happened and this is how this happened, see you later type thing. And I think anybody who's seen the movie knows exactly what I'm talking about. It was kind of, I don't know, I won't go into it, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, but when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I don't think really anybody's quite 100% sold on the goods that they were giving us for that. And last but not least, I hate that this is my one big complaint about the movie, because it's the one thing that I wanted to love about the movie, and that is that I just wasn't 100% sold on Brie Larson as Captain Marvel. I feel like her performance fell flat. Did she do an extremely poor job? No. Did she do an amazing job? No. She was just kind of there playing her role. And don't get me wrong, Brie Larson is a very talented actress. She's an Academy Award winning actress who I know can act, and you've seen her and put on a good performance in other movies, but I don't know if it was just the direction of this movie or the writing, but it just wasn't there for me. Some of her lines were a little cringy. Her performance overall was fairly stoic. And again, I don't know if this was in regards to the script, the writing for the movie, or the direction that they were trying to go in, but it just didn't sell me that she was Captain Marvel. That's what I go by for these characters. When I look back at a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like Tony Stark, for example, Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. I don't see anybody else playing that character but him. He owns that role. Chris Hemsworth, Thor. He's done such a good job playing Thor in those movies that I can't physically see anybody else playing Thor but Chris Hemsworth. Brie Larson as Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel could be seen as a throwaway character. She didn't wow me enough to think in my mind like she's the only person that can play this role. And I'll be honest, was it enjoyable to watch? Yeah. Were the fight scenes kind of cool? Yeah. Did the CGI look good? Yeah. Was I sold on Captain Marvel's performance, Brie Larson's performance as Captain Marvel in the movie? No. Does she have room to grow in another movie? Absolutely. I feel as if this movie was maybe more of a stepping stone type movie for her character, which hopefully in Avengers Endgame or maybe in the Captain Marvel sequel, she'll grow into this role a little bit more and we'll learn to like her more, like we did with previous characters such as Iron Man and Thor and even the Incredible Hulk. We love those characters, and again, I don't personally see anybody else playing those characters except the people who have played them, because they are those characters in those movies. And I unfortunately did not get that vibe from Brie Larson. At the end of the day, guys, this movie wasn't terrible. It was certainly a fun movie to go see, and it was enjoyable, especially if you've seen all the other movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I don't think that you guys should miss this one, where they did have good CGI in the movie. The chemistry between Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson was great, and it was funny at some times, balanced in with a good villain. I wasn't 100% sold on Brie Larson's performance as Captain Marvel, and I think that was one of the biggest shortcomings for the movie. I do think there is a lot of room for this character to grow, and I'm excited to see what her role is going to be in Avengers Endgame come next month. But for right now, if I had to score Captain Marvel, I'd give this movie a 7 out of 10. Alright guys, and that's it for me. Let me know what you think about Captain Marvel down in the comments. Did you love the movie? Did you hate it? What did you think could be different? What are you excited for in the future? I will plan on publishing more videos to my channel going forward, especially with Avengers Endgame coming up next month, so be on the lookout for that. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel and be on the lookout for those additional videos. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter. I'll put that in the comments below as well. And until next time, guys, thanks.